So have you guys ever broken a bone? Ever had a broken nose? How about a black eye? Well, I've broken my nose twice, and one of those times I started first grade with a broken nose and 2 black eyes, so we're talking about that today. First, before we get into that, let's talk about the art real quick. Now, this is the final of the icons that I'm working on for my Patreon revamp that is going to go live on December 1st. I really had a lot of fun with this, and in the next couple of videos, you'll start to see the art for the print for the mail club, as well as the stickers. And I'm very excited for those. So definitely, if you want to check out my Patreon, because I greatly have so much thanks for my patrons, and I appreciate them so much. And I hope you guys enjoy the art, and I hope you enjoy the story time. So let's get back to the video. So getting into this, I have 2 broken nose stories technically. The first one that I'm going to tell, it's a warm-up because it's a bit simpler, and I think it actually might be on the channel already, but I'm still including it as a warm-up just because the way it happened and the series of events happened so fast that I just don't... it just amuses me greatly. See, when we were younger, my sister and I both learned how to, we had learned how to play catch properly with a softball and a mitt and all that, and, well, Andy had a very good arm. An extremely good arm. She could throw so much harder than I ever could, despite no matter how much practice or anything. She's always been able to just throw so much harder than me, and I could never figure out how to catch up. I was okay at catching, and by this point it had been a couple years in of... Neither of us ever ended up on a softball team, by the way. I have my broken arm story on the channel, my broken wrist, and funnily enough, the one year that we were actually going to try out for a local softball team, that was when I broke my wrist. I think it was a week or 2 before, and we didn't end up playing because of that, so we ended up just playing catch with Dad sometimes out in the yard. And I digress a bit, but that was how we got started, tossing a softball back and forth. And we were over at my mama's house, my grandmother's house, and we were outside in the backyard. We called it the front yard. To most people, it would be the backyard. Don't ask, I might explain that eventually, but we were playing catch. And we each had a mitt, and we're doing pretty good back and forth. Every time I catch the ball, it hurts my palm and my mitt, because she throws so hard. And then here comes one of my cousins, because, we're over at our grandmother's house. Our cousins were around a lot. And I'm not complaining. Don't take that as complaining. I know my family sometimes watches these. I'm not complaining. I absolutely loved being around my cousins so much when I was younger. It was like having a ton more siblings rather than a bunch of cousins. But here comes one of my cousins, and she comes running out onto the porch, and she yells my name to get my attention. And I look up to her, and then my sister yells my name, so I look back to her. Well, about the time I look back, essentially, I turned my head back towards her just in time for the softball to slam into my nose. Full force. Just right into my face, and I don't even remember the impact. Suddenly, there was a softball coming at me, and then there was a lot of pain. Because softballs are very, very poorly named. Because, they hurt so much. They hurt so much whenever they hit you, especially because they hit a larger surface area. It hurts. And I've had Andy describe it to me before. Because she's actually described to me her perspective on the whole thing. Because when my cousin caught my attention, she was already in the process of throwing. The ball was about to start leaving her fingers. And she said it was in slow motion. Right as the ball left her grip, my head turned away. And then she called my name, and I looked back right in time for it to just smash into my face. She said it was almost like slow motion, the way that it happened. And I think to this day, she still feels bad for it. I tell her not to, it gives me a funny story. But that was honestly the second time I broke my nose. I'm pretty sure, honestly, that there's more than 2, but I don't remember the specifics of the others. Now, the major one, when I broke my nose, happened literally the day before I started first grade. Now, let me put it this way. Much like in my broken arm story, I believe I mentioned it, I was one of those children who was a bit of a daredevil child. And one thing about Daredevil children is they are a bit more... Children are going to children, and sometimes that means that stupid is gonna get involved, okay? When the Daredevil child comes into play, that's multiplied, sometimes tenfold. Even more so, if recently they have seen something that has interesting and cool stunts and they want to be able to do it too. In this case, I believe not long before this happened, we had gone to the circus. Well, allow me to rephrase. When I say not long before this, I mean that essentially it was a couple months before, where it was right before the start of the first grade. And it was after we went to the circus that I started doing this. And I did this for a while before I got hurt, which made it even more of a shock when I did get hurt, at least to me. The adults were not shocked at all, because when a kid does something stupid and gets hurt, your reaction is honestly to go, I told you not to do that, rather than to be surprised that the thing that you thought was going to end in injury ended in injury. But out in the backyard, it was fenced in. We weren't always, when we were younger, we weren't constantly monitored when we went out to play, especially because so long as we stayed in the yard, we lived on a hill where if there was anybody up there that shouldn't be, we had those neighbors that would make sure everybody was aware and the person would not be there for very long. So as long as we were in the yard, we could just do whatever for the most part. We didn't really have much of being monitored while we were outside. And especially because it's not like we lived right on the road. We lived in a little neighborhood. In the backyard, that we called the front yard, just like in the previous story, at the time we had a swing set. One of those typical swing sets. Had the 2 swings, it had the seesaw swing, and it had a little plain looking swing, a slide. And the part that's important for this is the little metal trapeze bar. That's the part that's going to come into play for this. Again, because not long before I decided to start this little stunt, we had gone to the circus, and we had a trapeze bar on our swing set. We also had one of those little, I want to say it was Fisher Price or Little Tyke or something like that. One of those typical little kid brands of a slide that was plastic, and it had 2 steps, and then the very top step, it was blue and orange, and the steps were blue, and the slide part was orange. And here's where the dumb part comes in. Owning a slide and a swing set with a trapeze obviously is not the dumb part. Here comes the dumb part. I would take the slide and I would turn it around so that the steps were facing the trapeze. Swing the trapeze, and then I would jump from the steps of the slide and grab it. You can see where I'm going with this, can't you? Now, I only ever missed once. One time. Out of all the times that I did this, and I was doing this all summer, anytime I got a chance and there wasn't an adult around to say, stop that, don't do that, you're gonna get hurt. Yeah, I only missed once. And I can still remember jumping, and my timing was slightly off. And I remember my fingers barely missed the trapeze bar, and the ground just coming at me at a rapid pace. Much like with the other one, I don't remember the impact. I genuinely do not remember actually hitting the ground. And I actually think I hit the ground and face planted so hard that it knocked me unconscious for a short bit. Because I remember very clearly, I remember the ground coming at me and then just black. Then nothing. And then the next thing that I know, the next conscious thing that I remember is blinking my eyes open and Mama and Mom both standing over me, and I'm not even outside anymore. I'm in the living room on the couch. I have completely been unconscious through being brought inside, and Mom and Mama looking over me, my nose had even stopped bleeding at this point, I'm pretty sure. And of course they were freaking out. I was just frustrated that I missed. And I remember them freaking out so bad, because, as it turns out, with how hard I hit the ground, I broke my nose, and I think there's actually some permanent slight crookedness to my nose after that, and I actually think that I hit so hard that it messed up my septum, because I've had issues with a small bit of a deviated septum for a while. But, for as long as I can remember, a while. So I kind of wonder if that might have been the start of that, because I hit that hard. And the worst part is, after that incident, I still did it. I didn't miss any more, funnily enough, but honestly, whenever you have the daredevil child, they don't just stop because they get hurt. Their usual outlook is, oh, that was a fluke, let me try it again. But the worst part about it was that I ended up starting first grade and having to go to class on my first day of first grade with a broken nose and 2 black eyes because I got hit so hard in the face that the broken nose actively caused me to have 2 shiners just because I hit that hard and I broke my nose that badly. And I know that Mom and Mama were so worried because, you've got a kid going to school for their first day of school with horrible, awful bruising on their face. What do people think of with that? Obviously. But thankfully, it was just a case of me being a stupid child, because that's gonna happen. And that's really all I have to say on it. I still to this day, it kills me that I actually ended up starting first grade with awful bruising and looking like I'd just been attacked because of a dumb stunt that I wanted to do as a kid and that I continued to do after getting hurt. It did not deter me, just like nearly falling off the top of the swing set did not deter me from still trying to crawl on top of the slide and then crawling up onto the top railing of the swing set and inching across it like an inchworm or a caterpillar. Because again, dumb children will do dumb children things. It's just how the world works. So do you have any really interesting injury stories from you when you were a kid? Did you do any outrageous stunts that got you hurt? Or stunts that you did for ages that you didn't get hurt and then finally the day came? Because honestly, that's not my only one. I actually have a bit of a chunk ripped out at the tip of my nose. And I have a little scar on the tip of my nose from another incident that I will tell another time. And I think that's all the injuries that have happened to my nose, I'm pretty sure. Aside from rolling down the hill as one does, and a blade of grass, like stabbing the inside of my nose and giving me a nosebleed. But aside from that, I have a lot of weird injury stories that I think would be interesting to tell. But I would love to hear you guys' very interesting injury stories. Especially if they were a result of being a kid just doing kid things, because that's usually when you get the most interesting ones. Because kids just have this tendency to not consider consequences and not consider, hey, if I do this, this might happen. That connection just isn't there for a long time. And you know what? I know a few adults for whom that connection still is not there, depending on the day. I'm one of them. But I just would love to hear the interesting stories, or even just interesting general stories from childhood that you're willing to share. I think that would be a lot of fun to read, and I enjoy reading interesting things about you guys in the comments. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons, Inside Chaos and Salmon, and I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!